Welcome everybody to today's webinar called Working with Custom Fields. I'm joined by Paul, who is our guru of training at JMC, and also Cheryl Davids, who is a CSS, which we call a client service specialist in the great state of Iowa. And Cheryl, why don't you go ahead and kick it off?
All right. Understanding custom fields in JMC. Today, we're going to take an in-depth look at creating and utilizing custom fields in JMC Office. This can be done for your entire building all in one spot. Here's what's on the agenda for this afternoon: creating custom fields, entering custom field data, and accepting submitted custom field data. Please hold all your questions until the end of each section, and then you can type your question in, and we'll try to help you answer that. Creating custom fields. Do you need to know if a school has permission to post pictures of students from Facebook, or maybe even want to know if your students have access to encyclopedias? From the front office, professionals can save time and have answers to these types of questions in a snap by creating custom fields. Create the questions in JMC Office so that you can collect data from families during online registration. And we can import this from the previous year. I used this when I was actually at the school, and it's really helpful. In JMC Office, head to File, Define Custom Fields. Did my mouse work? Nope, I'm not sharing. So step one, we're going to go to click on Import button to import custom questions from the previous year into the current year view. One helpful tip is if you have created custom field questions in prior years, this feature is a huge time saver, as the questions from the last year will be copied to this year for you. Step two, this is optional, but you can click on Edit the link to edit health custom fields questions that have been imported from previous years. So we can click Delete link to delete questions that are no longer applicable, or remove the check mark from the current year checkbox to deactivate a question for the current year. You can see right.
Cheryl, I think that's a cool JMC feature. If you want to leave a question, let's say you're not going to ask it every year, but you're going to ask it alternating years, or maybe every 3 years you're going to ask a question, maybe about a physical, because physicals in schools are good for 3 years, I believe. And so if you wanted to just still have that, you could just use this nifty checkbox. And I think that's a great thing in the JMC software, that you can actually activate it in current year, or if you uncheck that checkbox, it won't show up in the current year, but it'll still be there, so that in the following year, if you needed to use that item, it would still be there. So you're kind of building an archive, if you will.
Yep. Yeah, it's really nice. You can click the delete link to delete the questions that are no longer applicable, like we just said, for the current year. Yeah. And we can click the add custom field link to add a new questions for families to answer during registration. Step 5, we're going to select Other from the name drop-down list to type a new custom definition, or select a predefined definition from the list. Then we're going to enter your question under the name field, as it should appear in the family portal during the online registration. So you're going to want it, like it says, will your student be participating in any fall activities? So you can put it right there. Enter the character limit in the length field to set a maximum number of characters family could use to answer the custom fields. So if it's a yes/no question, it's easy to put like 1 for a Y or an N for no. Or, if you want them to be able to give some length to it, you can put in I'm not sure if there's a length max or not. Do you know?
It's long. It's like 999 characters.
Yeah.
The people have to write a book if you.
So if they want to give a good long explanation, they can do that.
Yep.
You want to go to the next one?
Yep.
Paul?
That's this one. Yep. The step 8.
Sorry, you did it while I was blinking.
No worries.
Select the form of the text, numeric, date, or yes/no from the data drop-down list. So we do have that right there. And for the yes/no questions, you can choose to skip to a specific question on your queue to the answer if no, by selecting the appropriate skip to the question in the drop-down list. The secretary that took over from me said this was wonderful.
Yeah, and I'll show that when we do the live look, I'll kind of show that a little bit more in depth
Yeah,
there.
she loved it.
Yep.
All right. Step 9, we're going to select the year-specific radio button to clear JMC Families answers every year, or select the year-independent radio button to allow JMC Families to answer to carry over from one year to the next. I know my families really enjoyed having that for a lot of the questions. A helpful tip is to use the year-specific performance option for item answers that will likely change on a yearly basis. For example, is your child riding the school bus? And then we can click Update button to add your custom fields question to the list, or click the Cancel button to discard your entry.
All right, I think since I'm the one kind of controlling the computer,
Perfect.
I'll just do the live look here. So we'll go under File to define custom fields. The thing to note is that this is kind of set up a little bit for online registration. The instructions are, because online registration allows families over the summer to come in and answer any of these questions that you have here. But you can actually create a custom field just to track internally as well. So if whatever you might want to track internally in the office, you sure can put it out there. Just because it's on here doesn't mean that the parents are going to answer it in online registration. You can leave them for internal tracking. But like Cheryl said, we can import the definitions from the previous year. Definitely want to do that if you have definitions from the prior year. You can edit one or delete it, but I'm going to add a new custom field link in here. When I click add the new one here, you want to make sure the current year flag is checked to use it for the current year. But if I uncheck that, like Brett was saying, great feature, you can put it in there, but it's not used for the current year. I can use this drop-down list to put in some items that might have been carried over from previous years. Honestly, it's not used very often, so you could sure look at that, but it's best just to come in and type in a name here. So if I want to put one in that families would answer here, I put in here, for example, what do I have in here? Does your student participate in extra, yeah, spell it correctly, curricular activities? Okay. Jeez. And then the length can be, first of all, if the data type is a text, then you have to put a length in there. That's the number of characters they can type in that text box. So I wouldn't put it at 999 for everyone. You could just put it at, whatever you think would be the appropriate amount. We also can do a number if you want them to put a number in there, or you can do a date if you want them to enter a date in. Like, when's the last time your student had a physical or something like that? Or the yes, no. The yes, no is very popular now because it allows you the families to come in and choose yes or no in a drop down. Now, to just simply do a yes, no question, I sure can do that, and I can click update, and that is now a new yes, no question that we'll have right here. It's gonna be at the bottom of the list of items that are checked for the current year. Does your student participate in extracurricular activities? Now, a couple little tips here to help you use them efficiently. Number one, you can come in and you can actually drag and drop them to where you want them to be. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool way to be able to move them around so that families will see them in the order you have listed here. Again, this will also just move them around if you want to use them to just track information internally. We also have this cool thing, which is this little link here, which is these yes, no questions. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change this to a blank here. So it's going to, what it would be like for you here, where you'll come in and you'll say, does your student, does your student participate in extracurricular activities? And then there's another question, does your student intend to participate in a fall activity? So in this situation, what we'd have here is that if the student, if the family answered no to this question, right, they don't participate in extracurricular activities, you probably don't want them to have to answer the question, does your student intend to participate in a fall activity? That's where this cool yes, no feature comes in. So if I want to skip down to a question after they answer this question here, you'd edit this. And we worked for a long time on the verbiage on this, just so you know, to make it make sense. So this was the best that we come up with in talking to our clients. We put this, does your student participate in extracurricular activities? If the answer is no, so I said, no, my kid doesn't participate in activities. I want to skip to the question of, will your student be taking driver's education, right? They're going to skip this question right here. So I can put this in here, and then I can click update. And then it shows a little link here, meaning that these two questions are linked. If I start moving these questions around, it'll actually unlink those, right? Automatically. They have to stay in that same order there. But it really is a great way to be able to put it so that families are not having to ask or answer questions that don't pertain to them. So you can come in here, you can play with it. You know, if you've ever watched any of the online registration videos, I highly recommend that you get in there and you put the questions in, and then you go out to the parent portal, the JMC family portal, and you test it out a little bit, log in as a family to see it so you can see how it works. That's how you want to make sure to do it. But really easy to come in, add any custom fields in. Again, if you don't want to use one for a current year, you do simply come in here and edit and check this for current year and update that, and then you're good to go. And you can use those yes, no, skip questions as much as you want. You could actually say on this first one, does your student participate in extracurricular activities? You could do a fall activity, a winter, and a spring. And if they answer no to this one, you could skip right down to the next question of whatever you want them to answer that doesn't have to do with activities. Really cool feature. So let's see, Brett, if any questions
Yeah.
coming in. Go ahead and add some
Paul,
things.
I want to highlight one thing you did again when adding on. Can you go back to that screen and add items?
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of my schools use this custom field thing throughout the year, and this is a way cool way to do it. And Paul kind of showed this. If you hit the plus again by adding a custom field,
Yeah.
let's say you're in September and you want to have something for registration next year, just uncheck the current year and put it in. Here's what happens. Schools think of stuff and deal with it as you think of it. Then you have better questions to ask with student registration, maybe in the fall. So you can always build this list and then you go back in and just check off the checkbox to make it live and you can use it. I have a lot of schools that do that, Paul. It's just a really helpful tip to let schools accumulate those items.
Yep. And I know I'm kind of beating a dead horse here, but you can use custom fields to track internally or ask families at registration time as well. I'm gonna wait to see if anybody has any questions. And just to highlight that point, just for online registration, when I come down here to JMC Family, to online registration, to the setup page right here, to the configuration options, that's when I come to this school for those custom fields. That's where I can check if I want them to be included in the online registration for this year. Meaning I've got, does your student participate in extracurricular activities in a fall activity, right? These might be checked right here for them to see. But maybe this is not a great example, but can we post your student's photo to Facebook? Maybe you don't want them to see that or whatever. That means that, hey, they're only going to see the checked ones here. These ones here would be used for internal tracking only. So great. I don't think there's any questions that came in. Is that correct, Brett?
Correct.
You're right, Paul.
All right. So Brett or Cheryl, are you next up for doing the entering custom field data?
Go for it, Brett.
All right, I'll take over here.
And
Thank
so
you,
what,
Cheryl.
what Brett's going to show you is how to manually enter in custom field data. If a family comes in and answers the questions, or if you just want to track the information internally, then after this part, then they'll show you how to bring in information that the families have sent in via JMC Family. So take it away, Brett.
All right, office professionals can see tons of important student data, including responses to custom fields questions in one convenient place. The Customs tab in the View Student Data page allow you to see all of the custom fields questions for the year along with the students' answers. You can even edit answers to these questions right from this tab in the JMC Office module. So here's a screen of that. You head to View Student Data. And as you see the View Student Data screen here, you see that custom tab. And there it is highlighted right there. And when you hit that custom tab, now you're going to select the student to be edited by entering the name of the student in the find field. And then step 2, you just click the edit link next to the custom field question to edit the response for that question. It's that simple, Paul. Fun fact, responses to custom field questions will be listed in the value column. So you see it right there as it says yes. Step 3, enter the new student response in the value field to change the answer to that custom field question. And step 4, click the update. Again, have to hit that update button for it to save the information or cancel to save. And that's all there is to it, Paul. Let's take a live view. Take us through it.
Super easy. So we go to View Student Data. We go to Custom, right down here, is your student going to drive to school? Edit that. Y for yes, or whatever it might be. And I can update that link right there. And there's yes. I mean, it's just super easy. And then you can run student lists on this, right? Which I don't talk about in this particular training, but we talk about with online registration. You can go to attendance, student, and lists, and you can run a report on any of these custom fields here, because the custom fields are listed right here under custom fields, all of them right there. Can we drive your students? Is your student going to drive a car to school? I can run a report based on that, preview that. It's going to show me all the kids that have a Y. Yes, actually, I've only got one kid that's listed there, but I better add their name too. It's not very helpful to have the students without their names listed there. We preview this, and this is going to show me all the kids. So James Aseth has a yes, and who else did I just put in there? Francis Bernardone has a yes. So easy to put that information in. And again, I'm repeating myself, you could have a question here that's only internally. Maybe you want a question such as, did the student have an IEP last year that they met all the requirements, right? It's not something you ask a parent, but maybe something you want to track internally. You can put yes, no, or any information that you want there to track internally. So really easy to do. So that's the manual way you can go ahead and enter in custom field data if you want to track something just internally that you would put in, or if a family during registration doesn't go online to fill out information. Like we know, not every family goes online to do the online registration. There's some families that might come in and need a little bit of hand holding, or if somebody enters in the wrong information. So maybe, they've got a third grader and you put a question there, can your kid drive to school? And they put in yes, and you're like, this third grader can't drive to school, this parent made a mistake. You could go in and manually change those questions yourself. The cool thing is whatever you have in there when they come into online registration next year will automatically show the most recent information. So, all right. I think that is it. I don't see any questions. This is a pretty straightforward feature. That's why I wanted to put it out there. Actually, Brett, this is one that tech support requested because they said, hey, a lot of people have questions about basic usage of custom fields. So let's bring it home. Let's bring it home. Accepting, submitting custom field data. Who wants to run this one?
I'll go for it.
Great.
Okay, processing the custom fields info into JMC Office empowers families and saves office professionals time by allowing families to submit custom field information through the registration process and make changes to the data as needed. Just like he said, that we can change it in the office. Office professionals can then choose to accept or reject parent submissions and print the results with just a few clicks.
So this would typically only be done in July or August after you've done online registration. The only exception to that is that some schools do kindergarten roundup and they use the online registration in the spring for kindergarten roundup. But that's when this typically would be done.
Okay, we're going to view student submissions in the JMC office. Head over to Family JMC or JMC Family and online registration, merge data, and then we're going to go to student data. We're going to click on the student's name in the modified student box to selecting the student. And a helpful tip is we can click reject all button to reject all of the information submissions for the entire list of students in the modified students box.
That in there is because sometimes schools like in, I don't know, at the end of the year might not accept any information and they'll get to June like, oh my gosh, 15 parents submitted information and they'll just say, let's just reject it all. They can update their information over the summer. So not something you're going to click regularly, but that's why we have that there.
Yeah, not too often. A fun fact, only students who have had new information submitted from the family portal will appear in the modified student box. Step 2, we can click on the accept button to accept the modifications listed in the proposed modification box, including custom field information for the selected student. And step 3, we can click on the reject button to reject the modifications listed in the proposed modification box, including the student custom field information for a selected student. Okay, fun fact is a check mark is placed next to each of the modified items by default. And you can see that check mark right down there. And we can remove the check mark from the checkbox to exclude the specific item from the accept action. Step 4, we're going to click on the print button to print and save the custom field changes for the selected student, including any notes added by parents in the family portal.
And that's all there is to it. So just to connect the dots for everybody here, I'm going to log into the JMC family portal for just a moment here. And if you've got some questions, you sure can ask them now. Again, this is typically done for schools only at the in the summertime, although unless you do a kindergarten roundup here. Families are coming to the register for the 21-22 school year. They're going to continue the registration process. They're going through, looking at the directions, updating their contact information, updating the demographics. And here is the questions right here. Are there people who can pick up your student from school? Is your student driving a car to school? Can we post your student's photo online? So these are those custom field questions. They can come in if they are year independent. That means that whatever they answered last year, these 3 questions get carried over. Great. You know what? My kid is driving to school this year. You know what? My kid will post a student's photo Facebook page this year. Yep, we're going to do that. And when they click next, it actually automatically then brings that into the JMC office. So now when you go into JMC office and go to JMC Family, online registration, to merge data, to student data, those will be listed right there. Here's Emily right there. Is your student going to drive a car to school? From nothing to yes. You can either reject that if you want. You could accept it and print it. If I accept it, it's any of the items that have blue check marks will be accepted. Click accept just like this. And now Emily McElmurray is removed from the list because she doesn't have anything listed there. And we'd be good to go. And I'll just reject that John one. So really easy to be able to go in and manage that information there. So that's part of the online registration. Again, mid-year, probably not doing much of that, that accepting. Again, you could be, but it might be going in and manually editing that custom field data there as well. So if there's any questions you can ask now, but I will just encourage folks again to think about, you know, when I do like a sales presentation for JMC, or I just talk about just general JMC usage, I highlight the idea that there's hundreds of fields in JMC, right? There's general, there's busing, you've got comments, you've got digital equity, you've got enrollment information, right? So hundreds and hundreds of fields you can track. If there's any field of information that you're tracking outside of JMC, you've got a Google Doc, or you have a checklist here. Think about using a custom field, because you can have that information in JMC. The nice thing is that then anybody who has access to the View Student Data screen can see that information. And also you can run reports on that information as well. And actually teachers can run reports on student lists as well. So when you keep track of something as an office person or administrator outside of JMC, you're the only one that sees that information, right? So that's creating an inefficiency in your school by putting information in here. What's your student, you know, what language does this student's family speak at home, right? And you might have in there English, Hmong, Somali, whatever it might be. Does this student's family read their native language? Yes or no, right? All these things can be helpful to track information as you're communicating effectively with your families there. Because if you've ever been a part of one of my presentations, you know, communicating effectively with families in a way that they can access is super important to me, but it's also even more important to your families, and it helps to create efficiency at your school and make sure that everybody is communicated with equitably. So, all right, it's a pretty straightforward topic here, so I don't see that we have any questions. Is that right, Brent?
Correct.
Right on, Paul. Good job. Yeah, I think another cool thing is, even if you said, no, she's not driving the car, you can go onto the student's custom field and change that response too.
Yeah.
So what I like about it too is it's incredibly fluid. It's malleable, it's changeable. It's very cool that, you know, if a student answered a question wrong on their registration, it came to the office professional could pull it up and change it and say, yeah, I am driving the car this year.
Yep, great. All right, Brett, you want to bring us home with the JMC news and upcoming events?
Absolutely, Paul. You bet. So January week 3, we've got a mid-year student course withdrawal and custom course credit seminar. That's the 19th. Please sign up. The easy way to sign up, Paul, of course, is just go to the homepage in the JMC module and click on the registration button, and you could register for any of our free, that's right, Paul, free webinars.
Yep.
The next week on the 26th, it's civil rights data. That's that CRDC data reporting that JMC always does a nice job of helping schools with. We'll feature that in the January 26th webinar. Then we're into February already, Paul. So it's a master schedule building for 22-23 part 1. That's the course creation and registering students component. And then week 2 of February is master schedule building 22-23 part 2, which is scheduling aid, conflicts, reports, and helpful tools. I think those two are super, super important for all of our counselors, for all of our assistant principals that are involved in that registration process. It's time to start thinking about registering students for next year.
Absolutely.
Refer a friend. It's back, folks. So now through January of 2022, we're offering schools a discount if they refer their friends. So for every school that you refer to JMC that signs up for our software, your school would receive a $500 scholarship to spend in your district.
Great.
And
Questions? Just
email our sales team at sales@jmcinc.com.
Yep.
And we're hiring client service specialists. So we're looking for 6 passionate part-time client service specialists in Nebraska, Minnesota, Wisconsin. As a client service specialist, you will develop meaningful relationships with our users through communication, training, and support. And in return, you'll get a competitive salary and an opportunity to work remotely. If you want to read the full job description, you can certainly do that when you receive the email from this training. You can click on that link and it will run you right to the job posting itself. Or if you are interested, email a resume and a letter of introduction to hr@jmcinc.com.
Great.
And be social with us. We're available on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn at online JMC or a blog, jmcinc.com/news. And that's it, Paul. Fairly straightforward and simple, but really powerful stuff today. Hopefully you have everyone that's on this webinar take a look at what they want to ask or what they want to have within our software that can help them track important information. And this can be as customizable to their school district as they choose.
Great. And Cheryl, thanks for joining us. And everybody, thanks for choosing JMC and have a great day.
Thanks, Paul.
Have a great day.